Hey guys, welcome to A Little Help for Our Friends, the podcast for people with loved ones struggling with mental health.
Hey, little helpers, it's Dr. Kibby. Real quick before we dive in, if you've ever listened to this podcast and thought, why didn't anyone teach me this stuff sooner? That's exactly why we created the Cool of Mind community, a space to learn real relationship tools directly from us and to connect with others loving someone who struggles with their mental health. And we also just help you show up in your relationships as your authentic self. So come join us. We'd love to have you. If you sign up right now, you'll get a 50% discount off the first month. It's a discount that I'm not offering for very much longer. So really sign up as soon as you can. And check out the link in the show notes or go to coolamind.com. KULAMIND.com.
Hey, little helpers. Today we have a really cool guest. Her name is Amber Rae. She's an international best-selling author, best known for the books Lovable and Choose Wonder Over Worry. Amber, welcome. I first met you, I want to say like 13 years ago when I was a wee lass of like 21 years old, and have kind of followed you on Instagram ever since. So it's really fun to be able to reconnect now.
So fun. I know. I was trying to remember. I'm like, were we at the Standard?
I don't know.
I'm like, I was trying to remember where in New York we were when we met. But I have this like vision of where we were sitting, the table. Like I have a whole
Same.
picture in my mind. But yes, it's so good
That's
to
all I
hear
have
you.
too, is I have like a flashbulb memory. Yeah. Um, and it was interesting because I remember, so I followed along on your Instagram, and you started writing like a lot of inspirational posts and a lot of journaling and kind of art projects. And then I remember you had this husband who I think you both would like wear hats together. I remember didn't you guys both wear hats?
There were some hats.
It was
There were some hats.
And he seemed like a big part of your story. And then all of a sudden, one day, there was a post that kind of suggested that there had been a big change and there was a new man.
Yeah.
And I've since learned that your first husband was your best friend that you married. And then your second husband is kind of this spectacular love story.
Yeah.
And Kibby and I have, I like I bowed out of my engagement really
Mm.
soon before my wedding, and Kibby interestingly, divorced the guy that she had been like really in love with through her 20s, and then married her best friend, who she is now much more in love with. So it's just kind of like interesting how we all sort of fit together, but also have major differences in this
Yeah, what a
story.
fun collision of stories. I love this.
Yeah. So can you kind of just give the background on like writing Lovable and what your story was with
Yeah,
these two?
absolutely. Well, the story is based on this wild life experience that I lived, which was 4 years ago while married. I looked into the eyes of a stranger, and it was like I suddenly woke up, and I didn't even know. I don't want to say the spell that I was under but it felt like I was kind of asleep. And I had been in a 9 year relationship and marriage with my best friend, who was never my romantic partner. But I was desperately trying to convince myself that he was my person because, in a lot of ways, our relationship checked a lot of boxes. We got along great. We had a good time together. We traveled. We enjoyed each other's work. We had a great shared community and we liked each other's families. And, it's like, isn't that enough? Shouldn't I be grateful? But at the same time, some essential needs were really unmet for me, which was the vulnerability and the intimacy and the depth of connection, the sexual relationship. Those things were never really online for us. And, for I, I wanted it to be there, but just couldn't figure out how to make it work. And I think, I very much had the mindset of I can make this work and I can figure this out. And maybe another session of therapy or a self-help book or a workshop is going to be the thing that finally brings us closer together. Or, in the last iteration, we were business partners in Mexico building a land project together. And, this wasn't conscious for me at the time, but I think I thought if I make him my business partner and if we build this thing together, then finally I'll get the kind of intimacy and closeness that I haven't been able to reach or access in this relationship. And so all of that was kind of online. And then I look into this stranger's eyes and it was like, wait, this is what connection is supposed to feel like. And it was as if the house of cards kind of came burning down. And I suddenly could no longer pretend or ignore or deny what my true feelings were. And what was so strange is that like I didn't know I was pretending, like I was, and I think when we want something, or at least my experience was I had to be very convincing with myself. And so, I was very much in the story of our relationship rather than the reality of it. And so, so once I kind of knew, I couldn't unknow, and then it was just facing the kind of reality of what really was instead of what I wanted it to be.
I mean, yeah, is very resonant. Can you clarify what you mean by it was never a romantic relationship? Like, was that explicit, or was it that you were acting as if it were a romantic relationship but not feeling it?
We just didn't have sex.
Like ever?
So I a little bit in the beginning, like,
Mhm.
and that just like wasn't where our connection shined. That would like that the chemistry wasn't there. And I thought we would figure it out. And he proposed 6 months into dating, and so I said yes. And I think making a commitment of that, like making that kind of commitment, so I was like, we'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. And I just like kept thinking we would figure that piece out. We never figured that piece out. And I think, I don't want to speak for him, but I think there was a lot of shame there for me. And is there something wrong with us? And is there something wrong with me? And so I think I also pushed it down because of that shame. And, we were in therapy for a period of time and never told our therapist we didn't have sex. So it was almost like the one shame inducing truth that we were afraid to really acknowledge because I can speak for myself here, not for him, but it was like if we would give voice to that, maybe we would have to look more honestly at what our connection really was. And so it's like, we were like cuddly and like, like cuddle like friends do, but it was just like not intimate, not sexual.
And were you friends for 9 years before, or were you married for 9 years?
We were engaged for 7
Oh, wow.
and married for 2. Yeah, I mean a 7-year engagement. Come on. I look back now and it's like, oh, you're right. All the signs are here that I did not want to see. And, and I walked down the aisle and with the wedding, it was kind of like, okay, we've got to make this happen now. Why haven't we made, people are like, what do you mean you've been engaged for 7 years? Like, what,
Hmm.
guys, make a decision. And so I like thought I needed to make a decision and make it happen, and not only make it happen, but like throw the most elaborate wedding ever as a way to convince myself of what, our relationship was. And yeah.
When it came to like planning the wedding or sex itself, what do you think the barriers were? Like, what would it be like you two didn't even think about it, or if it came up, was there conflict around it, or was one person pushing for it, the other person pulling away? Like, what happened there on those, the day-to-day experience of that?
I mean, on like a deep psychological level that I wasn't aware of at the time, I picked someone who was my friend who I didn't necessarily desire in that way. I realized later because I lost a father when I was young and I did not want to have to feel abandonment again.
Mm.
And so I chose partners that I thought A, wouldn't leave me, or B, if they left, it wouldn't hurt as badly as if I did desire them, because I didn't want to feel the longing of wanting a father figure, wanting that male love, was something my little girl wanted so intensely. So I think I chose safe relationships in adulthood as a way of avoiding that pain again.
Mm.
But like, so that's like the bigger
Was that
thing.
a
But on a
pattern for
day-to-day
you? Was
level,
safe
like I
relationship?
think, and I'm like, what's going on for him? Because it's not like we were. There were I write about one story in the book, but there was but in the majority of the relationship, we weren't like trying to initiate and rejecting the other person. We were just not initiating.
Hmm.
And so, I don't know, for me, that made it safe for me in some ways. But there was one instance where I like, had a few glasses of wine and I was like, okay, I'm gonna like make a move. And he totally shut down, kind of like pushed me away, kissed me on the forehead, and went and started working. And I like went in there and I was like, listen, like, are you gonna like, and this was right before we moved to Mexico. So this is like, in the last maybe year of our marriage or of our relationship. And I was like, are you gonna make love? Are we gonna make love? Or are you gonna like do work right now? And he was kind of like, I have a lot to do for tomorrow. So, I think, um, yeah, there was clearly disconnection there.
Was this a pattern for you, kind of safe relationship after safe relationship? Often when we hear about patterns, it's more like unsafe relationship after unsafe relationship, but the safety is in never having to grapple with that long-term commitment, never having to be truly vulnerable, let yourself be seen. This feels like a different kind of thing, and it's interesting to me.
I swung both ways. I think my first boyfriend was very safe, and then I went to college and had another safe boyfriend, and then I was like, "Ooh, maybe I can like go after this guy that I really want. That if he chooses me, then I'll believe I'm worthy of love." And then I made that decision, and it blew up in my face. And then I tried that again, and it blew up in my face. And then I was like, "Ooh, this is too scary." But I don't think commitment wasn't the fear for me. I think losing love was the fear. And so, but after these kind of experiences of going after what felt like attraction and desire, but not necessarily emotional safety, I think I swung really far into, okay, I'm just going into the friend zone. My nervous system can't tolerate what comes up when I go after a partner I desire. It's way too dysregulating. I can't make anything happen in my career. And in the times when I did go after desire, I like was abandoned, or that was my story. I dated a guy for a year and then he like ghosted me after a year. And I was like, what? And so it was too painful. And so I was like, oh, I'm not doing that again. This is what happens when I go after men I really desire.
Yeah. Yeah. When you were with your ex and you were saying making it work, what were the stories that you were telling yourself? Like when you're saying it might have been me, it might have been like what was the what were you how you were explaining like why aren't we having sex? Why isn't this connecting?
Yeah, I think I should be grateful. There's a lot that's working here. It was also a time in my career where I was really thriving. And so I was like, but she was just asking what were the stories I was telling myself. Yeah, I should be more grateful. We can figure this out. We have a lot that's good. It should be good enough. Like, your partner should be your best friend, which is advice I had been given. After, relationships kind of sizzled out over time, this is what happens when you get comfortable with each other. So it was just kind of like, maybe and I didn't have any role models for good love. And so I didn't really know what was like, is this right? And, I would talk to friends. I was like, well, they're kind of not having that much sex either.
Right.
They're 5 years in, and maybe it's once a quarter. And so like, maybe this isn't that crazy. Maybe this is what happened. So I just kind of believed that it was the norm and there was enough working to be grateful for that. Like, why should I want more?
Hmm.
I remember in my last relationship, I had built up romance to be the most magical thing ever that would like bring you to a higher plane of happiness and existence. And I think, me repeatedly not finding that in partners would lead to me kind of cutting and running. And then my last partner showed a ton of interest in me and investment in me. And even though he had a lot of bad stuff, I was like, I can't let this go, obviously, because so many people don't get that. So many people have these kind of absentee husbands. And I remember like laying
Yeah.
on my parents' couch and deciding to mourn my previous idea of what love was and just say, I guess this is it. Like, this is probably as good as it's going to get. And there's something wrong with me that isn't able to appreciate it more. But, I'm going to try to accept this for what it is. That sounds like that was sort of maybe part of your experience. I don't know.
Yeah, I think acceptance is a big piece, and I'm getting so many messages from women right now of I feel guilty wanting more. And I think it's so interesting, or, we're not that intimate, or I don't feel that connected to him, but he's good to my kids, even though he's, not, I don't feel closeness with him. Like, should I feel guilty wanting more? And I think we do, like, as a way to persevere, we like accept what is. Um, and, but what I'm hearing you say is that you had to, yeah, you had to accept that that's just the way that you thought love was going to be. And I'm curious though, like what for you, if you were accepting this like old story of love, what then brought in this more expanded version? Because you said you had to like kind of accept, and
Yeah.
but it sounds like you've now expanded into something different.
Yeah.
What shifted for you to expand into that new story?
My partner treated me really badly in certain ways, and I've told this like story on the podcast a lot, but
Mm.
I, part of what part of what I was accepting was that I was kind of his mother in an emotional sense, and I was also his captive in another sense. And
Mm.
I that kills romantic love, right? Like that kills sexual intimacy. But because I had always kind of been avoidant, I was like, oh, this is just what happens in relationships, and this is just what happens for me. I rescued myself from that feeling in conjunction with my friends
Hmm.
who were like, his behavior is not okay. And it came time for me to get married, and I had seen a lot of nasty divorces, and I was like, basically there was this whole like, it all uh blew up at one point, and I got out of it. And then I met my current fiance very quickly after, like 3 months after. And, I think actually some of the resignation I had in my previous relationship was helpful. I no longer idealized love to the same extent. I was able to come back down to earth a little bit.
Mm.
But Jason just gave me a sense of like freedom and authenticity and like and protection that I was finally in a place to really appreciate and actually like feel was romantic and like sexual energy for me. Um,
Yeah.
so I kind of thank my first part, not him, but like that first relationship for freeing me from the idea that love had to be my big rescuer and that it
Yeah.
had to be absolutely dazzling and like, oh my God, amazing, and put me in a position to really appreciate how love can be just lovely, just like lovely most of the time. And yeah, and I don't know, I have much more of a sense of like peace, and my mind is clear, and I'm still attracted to him. And that was a
Yeah.
mega, mega relief.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Totally.
I would love to
Yeah, I can
hear. I
really
mean,
relate
you
to
looked
the
into your future husband's eyes and saw what there. It sounds like you saw aliveness there. What was this?
I felt,
Yeah, what was the
yeah,
kind of
I
unfolding of
felt
that?
aliveness there. It was like this, I felt a connection that I'd honestly never felt before, which was electric but calm. And it was just this feeling of kind of hello again. And I think having felt the thing that was missing entirely from my 9-year relationship had me kind of wake up to, oh, this is what it's supposed to feel like. And I didn't, my first thought was, oh, maybe in another life. Like I didn't think I was gonna blow everything up for this stranger. But I was so taken by how that felt, and how important that it felt to feel that sort of connection. And it kind of led to a curiosity and an awakening around like, okay, what's really going on in my marriage and why don't I feel that? And it became the mirror for me to look honestly and at my relationship and the stories I was telling myself about it. And I can relate to a lot of what you're saying, Jacqueline, because I really romanticize love. And not having role models around love, I looked to romantic comedies and these like sweeping gestures of love. And, I think of even how my first husband proposed. It was like horses, sunset, ATVs, climbing, butterfly gardens. It was, these over the top, our wedding, so over the top. It was kind of we didn't know how to do love, so we had to like show love. And in my relationship now, it's so much more simple. Like, he proposed in our backyard after a meditation. It didn't need to be this whole thing because we knew that the love was there and the love was real.
How do you, for people who are listening, who are in these relationships, maybe long term, that they're not sure, it doesn't feel as, maybe it doesn't, it's not that like electric butterflies all the time. And they might feel, that energy with someone new.
Yeah.
How do you piece apart when is it like, okay, it's really time to leave my current relationship, or is it time to, revamp what we have? Like, the question people always ask is, how do we know when to get out? Right?
Yeah.
How do we know that it's like the relationship is broken versus like this is new relationship energy? We have this like attraction to someone new, which has its own feelings to it, besides for like someone that you're working on a long-term relationship with, right? It's so hard to tell.
Yeah, I don't feel electric butterflies, blooms, in the same way with my husband now. It's evolved into something more stable, more sure, um more contained, I think, which is healthy. I will say, if there's no world right now where I would notice or be attracted or feel that with anyone else, because I feel so secure and met within the marriage that, I think if you're feeling, electric connection with someone else, that points to some insecurity within your current dynamic
Yeah.
and something to look at. So, for me, and when I did meet him, I was like, oh, wow, yeah, there is something broken in this relationship. And so I need to look honestly at that. And I need to speak actually honestly so I was very transparent and open, and then began an open dialogue with my ex-partner. While I was like trying to figure out my feelings and what was going on with John, it was crazy to be like holding both. But I think the advice to people like when to get out is like, okay, my friend Vienna Farron, she's a therapist. She says sometimes the healing is in the going and sometimes the healing is in the staying. And it's important that we look at our relationships to endings and stayings. And so, for example, I'm someone who tends to overstay, people please, harmonize. I don't want to disappoint or hurt people, so I'll hurt myself. I'll abandon myself without even realizing I'm abandoning myself because I don't want to let someone down. And so, that overstaying pattern means I sustain and put up with, behavior that may not feel great for me because I almost like don't know better. And I've been trained in tolerance in a way. And instead of tolerating, I've realized the bad behavior or the disconnection or the lack of vulnerability or the lack of sexual relationship. I realized that I had to tolerate the discomfort of someone being disappointed in me speaking my truth or in me acting on something that is right and true for me, even if they disapprove or disagree. And so, I think for someone, if you're finding familiarity in that narrative, or you're like, "Ooh, I'm always the one who overstays," I think get curious about that. How is that showing up in the relationship? Is this an opportunity to voice a need to say, "Hey, I feel really disconnected to you," or "Hey, this need has long gone unmet. Like, I don't want to just be intimate, once a year, twice a year. It's very important to me." And then like you can try to put the work into the relationship. And sometimes people can meet you there and sometimes they can't. And so, I think Esther Perel at one point, actually had a conversation with her.
So jealous.
And, she said, well, your marriage is over. Would you like to begin a new one? And sometimes I think people can begin a new marriage within their marriage. And I think sometimes growth means growing apart, and you actually can't grow within that container. And it had just, after 9 years of efforting and also then becoming aware of my own unconscious patterns that had led me to choose this relationship, I realized that growth here means growing apart. And in a lot of ways, I had like really tried to get some needs met and like had some things that were just like really did not like, oof, like could not handle that there was no change around. And so, it's such a personal decision. It's such a layered decision. It's such a nuanced decision. And I think looking at the saying, the leaving, and really like connecting with that wise voice within you that knows, which I know can require a lot of there's can be a lot of fear that gets in the way of hearing that intuition, a lot of anxiety, um, are some places to be going.
Yeah, I mean, I think that makes so much sense. I was thinking about my ex-husband, and that was a whole saga, but it was really like a mind fuck in a way because I kept being like, we were having a hard time. We were disconnected in different areas. Like he wasn't working, he wasn't pursuing a job or really contributing to moving towards like making a family, what I dreamed of. And I kept thinking for years, I was like, we're just going through a hard time, or we got to work on it, or marriage is hard, and you can't get everything you want. And I don't regret, like, looking back, I was like, oh, I wish I held my standards higher or something. But like back then, you don't know, right? You don't know what you have to sacrifice because like not one person can't be everything,
Yeah.
right? Like there are parts of a relationship that are going to feel not perfect or connected. And I do believe that some people can come back from that and start anew in their relationship. And it was kind of strange to be like, okay, how much longer do I wait for this to transform
Yeah.
or get out? Like, is it, am I just shortchanging it and not giving this a chance to reach the potential it can be, or should I have gotten out in the beginning? And it's just that part going back and forth in that was so hard. It took so long.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I had dinner with one of my best friends recently, and she's like, "Oh, Amber, you were asking questions for years," and I was like, "I was."
Mm.
I was like, Tell me, And she's like, "You would like sit on your couch and have a glass of wine, and you'd be like, is it weird that we don't really have sex, or like, and you're like." I don't really, she's like, you had a lot of like, there was a whole doubt dialogue going on for many years. So it's, and I think we live in a culture that tells us to stay no matter what, stay for the kids, figure it out. Like marriage is hard, you make it work. And so I think there's an opportunity to like, I don't regret those 9 years. I don't go back and think I maybe should have left earlier because that's how my story unfolded. I'm the mother of a 9-month-old who now exists because of the perfect timing of everything. And I look at him and I'm like, you're so meant to be my son, But I do think if we can take the shame away from leaving and like instead be like, okay, this relationship is complete. Let's celebrate that. Like, wow, look at what you were able to accomplish in the container of this love. Like, whether that's just like healing old wounds or identifying patterns, like, we only learn through experience. Clarity comes through action, and we get wounded in relationships, so we have to heal in relationships. And so, I think the idea that we have to be with one person forever is often what can stifle us and hold us back and think that like it's bad or shameful if we have to leave. It's like, no, celebrate it. You grew as a person, you're now more aware, and now you get to step into a life where you find someone who's a better fit for you now at this moment.
The stigma around divorce is interesting because it's accepted fact that in order to get married, we have to date.
Yeah.
And usually those relationships are short term, but suddenly if a marriage or a relationship is 9 years and then it ends, that's seen as a failure instead of like, you guys made it 9 years. Oh my gosh. Like that's a lot more work and a lot more success than a 2-year relationship, right? It just happens to have this word marriage appended to it and like potentially a legal document.
Yeah.
One of the ways that
Vows under God. Vows.
You're what?
It's the vows under God.
Right.
As
Right.
I've been telling my story more publicly, there's, a lot of people saying that I am Satan and I'm the devil because I made vows under God. And to break those vows is the ultimate, like,
You're Satan?
Satan.
Kibby, we're interviewing Satan. How fucking cool is that?
I mean, pretty cool, but also there's a lot of Satan going around if we just tie that to like,
Oh, half the
I mean, the
American.
Coldplay concert. I mean, come on, like, you know, I mean, there's so many people who leave their marriage. What are you talking about? It's more than half.
All right. I was like, okay, but the people in this comment section is why people stay in things that they've long outgrown.
I want to, yeah, I do want to ask you about that in just a second. One of the ways that I knew that Jason was right for me was, and this has become like accepted kind of Instagram therapist speak, but my body definitely knew before I was willing to speak it or to act on it. Like in my relationship with my ex, I couldn't take a full in breath. It was like there was a cap on my breath. And I went on I went on an SSRI to calm the anxiety. And I just chalked it up to, oh, this is my like avoidant attachment style, which I don't even think I had. But I was like, this is just me struggling to stay committed when in fact, I think I had just met many men who were not the right one, and my body was like, they're not the right dude, get out. And then
Yeah.
I met Jason, and like, yeah, sure, there were butterflies and all of that, but I think more than that, my body is just relaxed. Like when I am with him, I feel safest, most joyful, most at peace. I can breathe the fullest. Did you have that experience at all? Over 9 years, it's a little different.
I mean, I felt safe with him in the way that one feels safe with a friend, but there was a lot of like holding my breath, like feeling, my body was definitely communicating with me. I was breaking out in rashes.
Oh,
I had eczema and rashes that when I left my marriage completely went away. And so I feel like my body was definitely trying to get my attention and say, like, this isn't it, and you're not listening. And I can relate to like just the sense of peace, the nervous system that feels so safe and at peace like now. And I mean, honestly, sometimes I'm like, oh, this sounds like when I looked into his eyes, I knew he was my person. Like my body and my intuition were like, there he is. He's the father of your children. Like, let's go. Maybe not blow up your life. Come on. What are you waiting for? Like, that was like truth speaking. But then, of course, fear was like, you're psycho. He's a stranger. Everyone will hate you. You're going to be shamed. You're like, here are all the reasons why this is inconvenient and terrible timing and like, yada, yada, yada. But like, body knew. And, eventually took me about 6 weeks, but I listened to my body.
It's crazy, like the wisdom of our bodies. I mean, maybe yeah, we just gotta pay attention to that so much more because there's just like such crazy rates of like GI problems, hormone imbalances, all these things that women are struggling with. And yet, like the three of us have had experiences where our bodies were like, nope. And our minds were like, we're gonna make this work, body. Come on, get going, have sex. And
Yeah.
I couldn't get pregnant with my ex-husband. We tried for 2 years. And then as soon as I got with my current husband, we got pregnant almost immediately. So our bodies just know. And I'm curious what what I call the curtain, pulling the curtain experience where you have that moment of clarity and then you're like, like
Yeah.
looking back on everything. And it just is like one of those clarifying moments where you see the matrix code or you see like pull the curtain back. Tell us like what that was like that day. What did you do? Like, did you have conversations with did you go back and say something to him? Like, what happened? What happened when the curtain was pulled for you?
That night, so the day I met John, he was with two friends. It was a this meeting. He just tagged along for it. And they were supposed to be there for an hour, and 5.5 or 6 hours later, they leave. And when they left, I turned to my then husband. I said, I just met a soulmate. It was like,
Oh my God, he was there? Oh,
yep. Oh, yeah. My husband was there when I met my now husband. They were there for the moment together.
did he see it? Did he go, uh-oh?
Well, he like later said the moment he saw us see each other, he knew our marriage was over.
Hmm. Amazing.
Wow.
Which I think goes to show that we both knew the marriage had been long over, and it wasn't him. He was just the catalyst for what was already there. But yeah, the energy was, or the connection was so palpable between him and I that and so undeniable that I wasn't like, and now I'm going to blow everything up and leave you and blah, 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 blah. I was just like, I just met a soulmate. Like I was like, almost like, because of, I don't know. It was like, I couldn't not say it. And in what he said, like, I'll never forget. He said, I saw. That was beautiful to witness. And I think there was real like beauty and surrender in that, and like truth, and like I actually think he thought it was beautiful. Because and we went through a roller coaster of emotions, but I do think my ex, he wanted, he was committed to unconditional love, and we both wanted each other to experience, a depth of connection. And there was a moment a few weeks later where he came to me, he's like, I feel like I met my John. I just like had this experience with this woman, and I had my hand on her thigh, and I thought, oh my God, if you walk in the room, and I'd be terrified. And I like, as he's telling me this, I was like, I'm so happy for you. Like, I want you to experience that. And I don't need it to be me,
Wow.
And so it was such a wild moment of us, like, just kind of discovering and being honest together. And, there were a lot of like, so what was crazy is that because I was like, oh, well, John can't be my life partner, I then made him my creative partner in the project with my husband. So the three of us were then collaborating on a project together. I mean, it was like, it's crazy.
That's awesome. Did you get along?
They did. And like the three of us together had like we were making all these things happen, and people were wanting to invest, and like artists, and like it was just like things were flowing. And then like we all kind of began naming what's true together. Very strange experience.
Wow. That's so cool. And that's so respectful. Have you guys seen You've Got Mail, that old romantic comedy with Tom Hanks and Meg Jack, are you shaking your head?
Meg Ryan. No, I thought I hadn't, but I have seen it. I
Yeah,
have
yeah,
seen
Of
it.
course, right?
We're okay.
This is like a classic. There was a moment where she's like with Greg Kinnear, and she's falling in love with Tom Hanks over email, over like pen pal email, and then they go out to dinner, and there's this beautiful moment where they're starting to talk, and she's like, wait a minute, you don't love me. And he goes, and she says, I don't love you either. And then they just start talking about who they might be in love with otherwise. And sometimes it's just like, that's the dream that you got, where it's like this, you don't have, I mean, I'm sure it's painful. I'm sure it was painful for many reasons, but it's for the change and the transition. But it's so beautiful that all of you could just recognize that this was just, it's nothing personal, or it doesn't mean anything bad about him. This is bigger than either any of three of you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
What was John's reaction when he looked into your eyes? I mean, was this felt on both sides?
Yeah, it was. And I didn't know that initially. I thought I was just experiencing something. But he later told me that he saw me walk toward, I was like wearing this blue flowy dress, and he saw me walk toward their car. And so he spotted me before I spotted him, and kind of had this feeling of like, and he was, he's like, it wasn't like a sexual charge, like heat energy. It was like this, like calm, like, whoa, like this, what is this? So yeah, he did have the same experience as I did.
That's fucking cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I am really struck by your ex's reaction and your reaction to him, where it's like we're trained to expect that if we aren't meant to be together, then there has to be this like, rejection and abandonment, and our ego has to be hurt. And I know before you met John, you were very into the wellness space and kind of the intention, integrity, kind of these messages. And I guess if you were business partners, he must have been as well. Did your kind of life philosophies help lend itself to this, or
We were
something like that?
recent business partners. We hadn't been, this
Okay.
was just, we were building this land project. But yeah, I think something that united us for sure was like we wanted to live in a world where every person could be their highest, truest self. And so, I remember we were reading the book, The Surrender Experiment, when this all went down. So I do think, we were in a place where there was like an openness, a receptivity, a sense of surrender, a sense of trust. Not to say that like, ego, rejection, abandonment, like those things weren't felt or experienced along the way, because there were, all kinds of, at one point, my then husband tracks down John at a coffee shop and is like, "Are you falling in love with my wife?" Like there was definitely drama. Um,
Ooh.
but I know it's all in the book. Um, there's drama, but like at least it was open. There was no, and I think in some way the three of us didn't know what was going to happen, but we knew that if we voiced our truth, that was going to align us all to the right thing, even if we didn't know what it was yet. Like, I didn't know if John was the great catalyst for me to leave this marriage that I needed to leave, or if he was going to be the great love of my life. Didn't know. I just knew that, like, I'm voicing what's true as it's unfolding, and I'm going to trust that that's going to take me where I need to go.
So what happened next? What happened next? So you all start working together as three business partners, and then did you admit something to John? Did you leave your marriage for like how?
John and I went on we were looking at land. We were like doing because we went to just like a furniture studio, and we're looking at design pieces. And because I was going to make him my creative partner and he was going to invest in this project, I said to him, like, okay, I can't leave this unsaid. I just need to voice that the night I met you, I like felt this really strong connection. Am I crazy? Am I making this up? And there were so many synchronicities happening and serendipities happening that like I couldn't even include them all in the book, because it would make it sound like a very cheesy love story. It was like too many shooting stars, like it was like the universe was like, pay attention, and so he then said to me, and I bring that up because there's this like moment, but it's too long to explain. He then says to me, "No, you're not making this up, and I'm so glad you said something, because I had this feeling of I've just met my soulmate." And he's like, and I'll be honest, I like went back to my friend's house that night and told my friend, like, why is the universe showing me this person who's like so clearly meant to be my person, but who's not available? And what he interpreted that as, okay, well, I guess she's showing me like the type of person that I'm going to call in, and this is actually teaching me what unconditional love looks like, because I know that I love her, and I like I just want so much goodness for this person, but I don't need to possess her. Maybe the lesson here is like love without possession. And so, and then I was like, okay, and then like, okay, let's do this. And then I think we tried, and then I was like, oh no, there's real feelings here. I also think he thought this woman's in a happy marriage and is not available. So like, and then I think once he started to realize, wait, maybe this isn't quite what I thought it was. And I started to be more like, as we all kind of walked down this road together, and as my ex was kind of like, actually, you guys hanging out is really helpful. I realized I've been embedding myself, and like you taking care of her emotional needs, and like I'm like get to go do more work, and I really like this. So it was just like a crazy, crazy series of events.
And are you still in contact with your ex?
We like that he remarried. He's now actually, the land has become their thing down in Mexico. I got flowers when my son was born, things like that. Not thrilled about the book.
Okay.
I'll be honest.
I was wondering.
And like, I told him I'm gonna write a book about this, and he was like, "Of course you're gonna write a book about this. I know who I married. Like, why, duh." And then I think when it came time to the book coming out, and perhaps he said that when he wasn't in a relationship, and now he's married and has a new person. And he is the main character of a memoir. Granted, he's not named. You can't even like Google and find anything online. So I like, I've left, so he's just, a man in a story. And this has been part of my work of being like, okay, he disapproves of me doing this person that I like spent 9 years of my life with, that I like care about, disapproves. But this is my story, and this is my truth, and I have to tell it. And so I had to be like, okay, I have to tolerate that discomfort.
Well, I remember, I might misremember this, but I feel like I remember a post where you admitted on social media that you'd met somebody new and that your relationship was over. And I remember I don't know if you were acknowledging that maybe people would judge you, or there seemed to be something a little bit nervous about the post.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know if that's true or if it was me being like, is there a new dude? What happened to the old one? But
I knew, dude. But I mentioned that the marriage was over and I was definitely nervous.
okay.
So you got those things right.
What was that? I mean, I have a fraction of the followers you do, but was on, reality TV and so got like tons of the internet hate and all of that. So I know how terrifying it is to break the news about something on the internet. And especially, you know, with your life where mine came from a reality TV, which is messy and they expect us to fuck
Yeah.
up and, make disastrous choices. Yours was much more like positive and inspirational and all this. And so talking about a divorce, I mean, Satan's divorce must have been really scary for you. So what was that like?
Well, I will say initially people were very, because this was a couple of years ago. I was, I said I left my marriage and I can't remember the exact details, but I basically, no, actually, maybe I did say, oh, no, I came out in the post saying that I was with someone new. I
Okay.
left out the detail that I met him while married in that
Okay.
post. And I think that was more because I realized, like, as someone who has kind of told the truth about their life on the internet for a long time, I realized that, like, I don't have to, I can share, I can be discerning when I share because our
Yeah.
relationship was new and I get to protect what's ours. And, like, there will come a time where I want to tell the whole story. And I wasn't ready to tell the whole story yet.
Hmm.
But there was definitely fear of judgment around how quickly I moved on, all that. But I remember being very nervous posting it, but it was also, I felt deeply relieved and at peace because it was my truth. And I felt my community came and was incredibly supportive. And so I haven't really gotten all of the backlash until now that I'm telling the full story. And I'm glad because I've had the time, I think when something triggers me, people are like, how dare you leave your marriage for another man? That doesn't trigger me now. It used to trigger me because I shamed myself for doing that. And so
Hmm.
I had to work through my own shame about my story. So now when people have thoughts, like, because I've worked through it and I like have, realized that like life happens. This has just happened to be the way that my story unfolded and like why, kind of who cares? Um, I'm not as triggered by the backlash, if that makes sense.
That's great. Yeah.
It's like it's all in me. It's all like okay, if something's really upsetting me. Someone did recently say, um, like, I wonder how your ex feels about this. And that one got me because I was like, oh, yeah, I do kind of feel bad. This is, being the character in someone else's memoir, even though you're not named and no one knows, most of the world won't know who you are. I can imagine it would be an uncomfortable experience. So I had to look at that and be like, okay.
Yeah. That is the writer's dilemma, always, I feel.
Absolutely.
Well, tell us about the process of writing this book. I
Yeah.
mean, tell us the title again, but what was it like to write about all of this and process it, reflect on it in this particular, and be open about it in public?
Did you say the title again also?
Yeah, just for if anyone
Yeah.
forgot what it's called.
Lovable is the title. I mean, the writing as a writer, writing is the space of healing, catharsis, transformation. It's, when you put pen to paper, there is something really powerful and sacred that can happen. It's like a process of alchemy. And I teach a lot of writing workshops, and my process is always like, first I write the bad draft, which is just like, get it down. It doesn't need to be great. Trying to write a great piece of writing is only going to get you to not write at all. And then my second draft is what I call the brave draft. And the brave draft is where I go in and I say, where can I be more honest? What truth am I not saying? How can I have this be, the most honest depiction of what was happening inside of me and what was happening in that moment. And I always say, write like no one will read it. And this is, I think, the most essential thing because when we have other people, what will he think? What will my mom think if I share this story? Is he going to be uncomfortable being featured in my memoir? If those questions are in the writing room, we're not going to get good stuff on the page. So I had to write the first draft and tell the story exactly as I needed to tell it. John, my husband, did not read the book until it was done.
Mm.
And I didn't even want, even though he was a participant in the story and knew he was going to be featured in this book, I didn't want to write the book that I thought he would like and want to read. Because he also has different literary tastes than me. I wanted to write the book that I needed to write. And so, and it was writing the book helped me like connect the dots of my past and like understand, like, I didn't even realize my stepfather was abusive until I was writing the book. And I was like, oh my God, that was abusive. And oh my God, that's why that happened. So it's like, writing can be this powerful healing process for us. And we need to have the space to really experience that healing. And if we're editing our story, then we can't look honestly at our story. And so much of healing comes through being able to see our stories accurately. So that's really what the process was. And then I think, once you've written the truest thing on that you can possibly write, then you can go back and be like, is that story necessary? Like, do I need to bring in more compassion for my mom? Do I, like whatever those questions are. And so like the edit is where you can take things out. But you gotta write first, like no one is going to do that.
I need to take one of your workshops because I used to be a huge writer and I've felt blocked for so long now.
Ooh, we will unblock you.
Okay.
I'm the queen of unblocking.
Oh, that's what I need. That would be amazing. All right. Well, Kibby, any last questions?
No, this has been fascinating. I'm just like, just getting to know you, but so happy that you've had this, like, it's just there's so many people who just feel imprisoned in their relationship.
Yeah.
And I do see there's two sides of it. There are people who are just like, if you're in a toxic relationship, a bad relationship, get out. And there's something to be said for that other side, which is just like, hey, I have a really bad model of love, and security and safety and these other things were important to me. It was scary to let go of to shoot for something else, right? So I also want to say that it's hard for people who feel stuck in a relationship to say, like, there are reasons why you're in what you're in, but then how do you know when to like step off into the great unknown and give yourself a shot. So it's been amazing to hear the story and that it worked out so beautifully.
Thank you. Yeah, this conversation's been a lot of fun.
Yeah.
All right. Well, when does Lovable hit the shelves?
Lovable is out in the world August 5th. Available everywhere books are sold. So I don't know when this is going live, but in a week. And you can, buy it anywhere books are sold. You can follow me on Instagram, Hey Amber Rae, and my website, Amber Rae, has all the goodies, all the writing workshops, all the things.
Amazing.
By accessing this podcast, I acknowledge that the hosts of this podcast make no warranty, guarantee, or representation as to the accuracy or sufficiency of the information featured in this podcast. The information, opinions, and recommendations presented in this podcast are for general information only, and any reliance on the information provided in this podcast is done at your own risk.
I already said that, but you're
This
literally
podcast and any and all content or services available on or through this podcast are provided for general, non-commercial informational purposes only, and do not constitute the practice of medical or any other professional judgment, advice, diagnosis, or treatment, and should not be considered or used as a substitute for the independent professional judgment, advice, diagnosis, or treatment of a duly licensed and qualified healthcare provider. In case of a medical emergency, you should immediately call 911. The hosts do not endorse, approve, recommend, or certify any information, product, process, service, or organization presented or mentioned in this podcast, and information from this podcast should not be referenced in any way to imply such approval or endorsement.